A human being entering this world is immersed in a narcissistic reality from the moment of conception. This alone constitutes severe trauma, opening the individual to being infected by the narcissistic parasite from the very start. Everyone is infected to some degree. Some more than others, but for this dynamic to work, the whole world must be under its influence. This is why those who see through the illusion often feel alienated, invalidated, and, in some cases, either pushed into an extreme form of narcissistic infection because the subtler forms don't lull them to sleep, or they retreat entirely, living in exile. In such cases, they may present a facade to the world, a mask they wear when interacting with others. This facade can be intentionally negative. They might pretend to be bad as a protective barrier, creating distance from those with more polished facades who would seek to exploit them. The individual is a being who comes into the world, feeling isolated because no one speaks their language, the language of true presence. Meanwhile, everyone else around them has lost the ability to communicate in the same way. Children don't need to be actively abused because from the moment they are conceived, distortion begins even before birth, as the environment around them is already impacted by these unhealthy dynamics. The world itself is warped, and because of that, we are influenced and shaped by it from the start. This distortion ensures that the narcissistic reality continues, trapping us in it. We can only free ourselves if we stop and return to a state of vulnerability, the pure, untainted being we once were. It's almost like you need to reconnect with that childlike perspective, seeing the world with fresh eyes. Only then can you truly understand what's happening around you. This is when you begin to see the world for what it is, a world of abuse lurking everywhere. We are born into and trapped by the narcissistic stories told by religions, governments, families, schools, and all societal structures. Everyone thinks the same, and this collective mindset creates a false reality built on false beliefs. When we come into this world, we are born with truths that often go unnoticed or unappreciated. If you really listen to children, their words can be so powerful that they leave you speechless. They speak truths so raw and pure that they cut through the layers of false beliefs, showing us what we've all been blind to. Children are born with a deep, natural understanding, but society and the systems around them work to break that down. When children begin to see through the false beliefs that others hold, it can cause tension. The mere act of not following these beliefs can be perceived as hurting others, even when that's not the intention. However, the hurt is not a real hurt, it's a manufactured hurt. It's not about truly causing harm to the other person, but rather, it's about challenging the program they've internalized. These beliefs, whether social, religious, or cultural, are deeply ingrained in individuals and communities, becoming unquestionable truths. When a child or individual refuses to conform, it's not the person who is truly hurt, but the belief system itself. The programmed perceptions, those ideas of what is right, holy, or good, are threatened, causing discomfort for those who hold them. The frightening reality is that the entire collective often holds these harmful beliefs as sacred. They are seen as truths that define reality, and questioning them leads to ostracism, rejection, or punishment. Defying these norms feels like threatening the very fabric of the collective's identity, making the consequences of nonconformity not just social, but existential. This creates a system where staying true to oneself becomes dangerous, as the collective power is tied to these false beliefs. The fear of losing connection, being cast out, or being labeled as wrong keeps many trapped in conformity. It's not just scary, it's a deeply conditioned survival mechanism that reinforces the system, preventing authentic living. By not staying true to our own truth and trying to avoid hurting others in this way, we are perpetuating the false world, the predatory and parasitic matrix. This matrix is the system that rewards conformity and punishes those who challenge its script. Society, as the program's enforcer, ostracizes, excommunicates, shuns, demonizes, and diminishes those who challenge or step outside of the prescribed roles. By complying with these pressures, we inadvertently support the continuation of this false world, reinforcing the very structures that keep it in place. For instance, if you refuse to follow your grandma's beliefs, it may be seen as you hurting her, and the entire family may turn against you, making you feel guilty and demonizing you. simply because you disagree with their programmed ideas that hold no true validity. You don't push your opinions on them, but they relentlessly push theirs on you. This mirrors the colonial, conqueror mindset of a parasitic, predatory world. It's not about whether their beliefs are valid, it's about the refusal to conform. By not adhering to the collective's rules, you challenge the power that controls and manipulates it, a power that is deeply ingrained in each individual within that collective. And so it fights back. The people who hold these beliefs, whether it's a grandparent, parent, entire communities, groups, societies, or anyone in authority, devalue you simply because you don't agree with them. To them, your worth is entirely tied to your obedience. If you don't comply, you're seen as less than and often labeled as bad. But this isn't because you are inherently bad, it's because you refuse to perpetuate and validate the false reality that supports the parasitic, predatory system they uphold. By not conforming, you become a threat to that system. This also illustrates how the concept of bad is often nothing more than a rejection of what they want you to do, while good is simply following their commands. It's all about obedience to the power structures, whether those are individuals, groups, or societal systems. When you truly see social concepts of good and bad for what they are, you realize that what is considered good is often far from it, and what is truly harmonious, healing, and just as devalued and labeled as bad, crazy, or immoral. The reality is that good and bad are constructs that reflect social conditioning, not inherent truths. The real truth is often hidden or distorted, while false truths are widely marketed and accepted as reality. This power of perception, controlled by numbers and collective agreement, shapes what is considered true in society. The most marketed and perpetuated narratives are accepted as the norm, and this has been the way of the world for a long time. You see it clearly, yet they hold perceptual power over you. If you stay in their presence, they can manipulate you into becoming extremely tense, angry, reactive, or, conversely, completely devoid of your own will, motivation, and identity, just fawning or gray-rocking to survive. Then, they will use your reactions as proof of how bad or evil you are, how possessed you've become, or claim that you're depressed because you've turned away from their God. But in reality, it's them who have planted and cultivated that negativity or passivity within you. The goal is not only to force you to accept their beliefs, but to make you a reflection of those beliefs. They aim to transform you into someone evil or depressed, thus confirming their worldview. In this toxic dynamic, your individuality and your truth are irrelevant. The overwhelming pressure to conform to their beliefs is all-consuming. That's why it's crucial to break free from their influence and reclaim your true self. Once you step away and the scapegoating energy no longer affects you, you'll begin to see yourself for who you really are. You'll realize that the badness they imposed on you was never yours, it was a projection. And that's when they'll begin to hate it, because your liberation challenges their script even more. You left, but you're not evil, and you're not punished by divine wrath. In fact, it exposes the emptiness of their false narrative. This dynamic creates intense pressure to conform, and the child often feels trapped. They don't want to hurt their loved ones, but at the same time, they are being forced to follow a narcissistic belief system. It's a cycle of emotional manipulation, where any deviation from the system feels like a betrayal. This is emotional captivity, where breaking free feels impossible without the guilt or fear of harming those they care about. For example, you might stay in an abusive marriage because you know that if you leave, you won't just be torn apart by your closest family, but by the entire community and society as well. They all share the same deeply ingrained beliefs, especially religious ones, that marriage is sacred and must never end, regardless of the circumstances. Even if you're being mistreated, trapped, and overwhelmed by despair, the pressure to stay is overwhelming. The idea of adhering to these beliefs, the need to preserve the illusion of a perfect, unbreakable union, overrides any concern for your personal suffering. Your well-being becomes secondary to maintaining this facade. The belief that you must stay, no matter the cost, makes the idea of deserving something better irrelevant to them. In this scenario, there is no empathy, no humanity. What exists is a parasitic script that everyone has been indoctrinated into. This is an obvious example, but it can be found in more subtle ways in everyday groups. Narcissists create belief systems, even small religions, around themselves, and this is a fractal of the larger narcissistic manipulation at play in society. Religion, in this case, is just one of many tools of social engineering, designed to make it easier for individual narcissists to create these microcosms of control. The masses are already conditioned by these ingrained patterns, and it's not just religion. Movies, media, and everything we encounter are part of this larger mechanism of global ever-present religion, belief system, and all these parts work together, reinforcing the same mindsets and dynamics. This is the foundation of the narcissistic world, a reality where empathy is not genuine but a programmed imitation. People within this system don't actually connect with your emotions or struggles. Instead, they operate from a template, an idea of what empathy and love are supposed to look like. But this template is hollow, a construct based on societal rules, norms, and expectations. These supposed expressions of love and care are distorted by rigid beliefs, all working together to uphold an underlying system of control. Interestingly, within this world, you often witness people defending those who are clearly in the wrong, or supporting things that are blatantly false, and yet, the group seems to genuinely empathize with them or rally behind those lies, no matter how obvious they are. It's a paradox that can feel deeply unsettling. Everything appears so real, so convincing, but in reality, it's all inverted. You stand there, watching in shock, almost as though you're caught in a twisted play. It's like being in the Truman Show, everyone else is playing their part, fully aware that it's all just a game, while you're the only one who believed that the world around you is genuine. If you've experienced deep narcissistic abuse, you've come to realize that there are two distinct worlds. One is the world of humane people who act from actual humanity, who feel and empathize, but they're often eroded by the narcissistic world because they don't belong there. When they don't conform, they're often dismissed as losing touch with reality by the narcissistic crowd. The people in this crowd create their own version of your story, trying to force you to stay within their distorted narrative. But you must stay true to your own story. The truth of your experience will eventually rebuild you from within. As you reclaim your authenticity, the power they once had over you diminishes. They can no longer push you down, and this is a powerful transformation. The realization sets in, there are two worlds, and if you are a humane person, you simply cannot survive in the narcissistic one. It's not your world. The conflict arises because you feel the pain of this world, while those who uphold it don't understand why. They don't see the harm they're causing, and they won't understand why you are hurt. In this world, you are the one who is wrong for not conforming, but in truth, it is their world that is flawed. Okay, so there is no way of explaining that to them or trying to make them understand because they will not until the grip of the narcissism is loosened up and then they are released. But maybe they will never be right. So you cannot try to do that because it's impossible. You cannot change a narcissistic world or system from within, you have to leave it. Staying in it, no matter your intentions, will ultimately transform you because that's how it works. If you remain in this environment, you'll start to get hurt by certain behaviors, but those around you won't understand why. They're conditioned the same way, their perceptions are narcissistic, so they can't see your point of view. Instead, they'll likely accuse you of being the problem, further adding to the narcissistic abuse. For example, if you're in a relationship where you're being hurt by someone's behavior and you try to explain this to them, but they don't get it, the only option is to leave. Being alone may seem difficult because society often labels you as a weirdo or suggests there's something wrong with you. But being alone is essential, it's when you can find yourself, free from outside influences. It's your path to reconnecting with your true self. However, after leaving, there may be a long period of purging the narcissism that's ingrained in you, because that influence is deep. I believe everything stems from one source, and that force disconnects us from one another. It's not just about external people, there's something within us that we must clear out. Once you've purged that, you'll begin to see more clearly. When you interact with others, you'll recognize the patterns of narcissism in them, but because you're clean and clear, you won't be affected. You'll be able to distinguish the manipulation from reality. That's why I think being alone is beautiful. I've spent a lot of time alone, and it's been amazing. I still have some people in my life, but they're non-intrusive, and I still feel like I'm alone in a way that allows me to maintain my peace.